One must know that we all have certain fears when we're going to meet a Filipina for the very first time. For most, we've spent many months in an online relationship where our communication was mostly via video chat, which, let's be honest, is far different from being with someone face to face. As human beings, we will always have doubts that creep into our mind, and this is especially so when we only see someone online for an hour or two each day. What we don't see is what they're like for the other 22 or so hours a day. Yes, we may get a good sense of someone, and maybe for some, even fall in love over the internet, but certain thoughts will linger in the back of your mind, and even more so when you're meeting your Filipina for the very first time. Here in this video, I'll give you the 5 worst fears many foreigners have as they're flying towards the Philippines, and sometimes these fears materialize when they get to the Philippines. The first fear a foreigner may have that could indeed come true is that she doesn't turn up to meet you at the airport or fails to reply to you after you arrive, effectively standing you up in a foreign country. I've heard on occasions this exact thing happening to some foreign guys, and indeed, I had this very same thought when I was flying to the Philippines to meet my Filipino wife for the very first time. In fact, I thought my worst fear had come true briefly when I arrived at Manila Airport and my girlfriend at that time was nowhere to be found. I can tell you I was thinking that she'd changed her mind about me, or even perhaps that she had a boyfriend or husband in the Philippines. Many thoughts were racing through my mind for around 20 minutes when she finally appeared. As it turned out, she'd brought with her a couple of relatives, and they got sidetracked looking at aeroplanes, as many Filipinas do. They lost track of time. For me, it turned out all good, but others haven't been so fortunate, and their excitement turned into disappointment. Now, I don't know how regularly this happens, but the men who have told me about this, whilst disappointed, were rather philosophical. They thought to themselves that they're in the Philippines where they can now have a holiday and who knows, perhaps meet a lovely Filipino whilst there, which I believe is the best way to look at it. One may ask, what would make a Filipina do such a thing and stand up a man that they've been chatting with for many months? Well, it could be a case of cold feet, but more likely she was only ever interested in you because of the money you were most likely sending her. Perhaps she even had a boyfriend or husband, or she was playing you from the very start. The second fear a foreigner may have that could come true when meeting your Filipina for the first time is that she looks different in her pics or even than she did on camera. Now, I know it sounds a little odd for someone to think like this because they've been seeing each other for months, but that's only from pictures and on camera and not in person. One must know that many Filipinas will only put rather flattering pictures of themselves on dating sites, and even the one she may send to you could be several years old. Or she may always be wearing makeup when she takes pictures or does video calls, because she wants to look nice for you. But sometimes, when the makeup is removed, she may look much different to the woman that you were chatting with on video call. Another thing to consider is some Filipinas will also make a point when chatting online to you so you can only see her face and not her lower body. This could be because she may be a little larger than you or her may like, so she makes sure to hide this part of herself from you. All or any of these things may be a concern for some guys, and indeed, I've heard of some guys arriving in the Philippines to a Filipina who looked very little like the one he was chatting with for months. Yes, clearly he could see it was her, but now in person she looked a little older, or not as beautiful as he thought, or a little on the chunky side. The third fear a foreigner may have that could come true when meeting your Filipina for the first time is when you find out that she has a child she never told you about. Some Filipinas are very careful in revealing to a foreign man that they have a child, especially the younger Filipinas. They may fear that the foreign man won't want to get to know her, so she hopes that by spending time with him first, he'll get to love her to the point that a child may not be a problem for him. Now for me, I clearly remember asking my Filipina when I first met her online if in fact she's ever had any children, and her prompt reply was yes, and she went on and told me about her child. I personally had no problems with her having a child at age 29, as we all have a past, but had she lied to me at that point, and then months later I found out that she had a child, I would have walked away for good. Unfortunately, some Filipinas aren't quite as honest as my wife was, and many foreign guys have heard of similar stories happening to others. So naturally, these fears will come into play when they're on their way to meet their Filipina for the very first time. The fourth fear a foreigner may have that could come true when meeting your Filipina for the very first time is when you find out that she's only out to scam you from the very start. Soon after arriving, she may be hinting about buying her things or telling you about her hardships so you feel compelled to give her money. This, of course, is something that she may also have been doing online, but perhaps the foreign guy only just realised this when she's staring him in the face. Either way, I've heard of foreign guys going to the Philippines to be with the woman of their dreams who they thought they were going to spend the rest of their lives with, only to find out that she was never really into him, and so the two went their separate ways. The fifth fear a foreigner may have that could come true when meeting your Filipina for the first time is when you realise the two of you, after spending time together, aren't as compatible in person as you thought you were on camera. Now, this is a reasonably more common situation that some foreign guys and Filipinas find themselves in. One must know that it's far different being in an online relationship where you may see each other for just an hour or two per day to when you're spending every minute together for a few weeks. This is when we start to see all her sides, as she also gets to see all your sides. When she's happy, mad, sad, and so on. Simply, there is no room to hide and disguise things like is possible in an online relationship. We may indeed see sides of her that we've never seen before, and for some guys and Filipinas, this can be a deal breaker. Now, whilst most online relationships between foreign guys and Filipinas don't have the issues that I mentioned here, they do certainly happen from time to time, and that's why these fears often cross into a foreign guy's mind when he's going to meet his Filipina for the very first time. For more valuable information and tips around meeting your Filipina for the first time, be sure to check out my playlist on screen now, and I'll see you in the next video.